Chair, I will just focus on follow-up questions, then Honorable Skosana will come in. Good evening once again, General. It's been a long day. We last interacted in the morning. You somewhere in your statement you are saying that when there was an attempt to return the dockets, the conclusion that you made is that the dockets were taken in order to influence them on matters that are related to Gauteng, not on matters that are related to political killings in KZN. Now, my understanding is that the dockets have now been returned to KZN. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Have you assessed the dockets? Have you perused them?
I'm not handling the investigations directly, but the investigation team did conduct an audit on these dockets before they left Pretoria, and they are working on them in KZN. They did another inspection on them when they arrived in KZN.
Now, in terms of the report that you got from them, have these dockets been tampered with while they were still in Pretoria?
The report I received is that they were not tampered with.
They were not tampered with?
No.
So the logical conclusion that we can draw from that is that you are correct when you say that they were taken for the purposes of influencing them for Gauteng matters, not for KZN matters. So there was no intention to influence the dockets for political killings that took place in KZN. Is that the correct conclusion?
That's correct, Honourable Member. That's a conclusion that we reached, that was a missed target.
What adverse impact did you experience as a consequence of the decision to take these dockets to Pretoria? Were there any matters, to qualify my question, were there any matters that were withdrawn in court as a result of that decision? What happened during the period when the dockets were not in possession of the political killings task team?
All the dockets that were moved to Pretoria were dockets that were still under investigation. So the serious impact on that was that the clients were not updated about the status of the investigation, and that makes them to be unhappy. And the second impact was that the arrest of the perpetrators that were identified was delayed. And the challenge with that one of the delays, unfortunately, the perpetrator had died when the dockets came back. So he could not be charged.
So those are the two major adverse impacts that we experienced?
That's correct.
In terms of the terms of reference, on paragraph 4.1.7, this ad hoc committee, inter alia, is expected to investigate the alleged corrupt relationship between Minister Mkhunu and Mr. Brown Mokgotsi, and between Mokgotsi and Mr. Vusumuzi Ket Matlala. During our deliberations in one of our meetings when we were developing these terms of reference as this committee, we unanimously agreed that you must be the main witness of this committee. And the result, the reason for that is that we are trying to be in compliance with the legal principle that says who he alleges must prove. Had it not been for the press briefing that you made on the 6th of July, this committee would not be here today. In the statement rather that you made during the press briefing, the impression that we had, which resulted to us agreeing on these term of reference is that there is a corrupt relationship amongst the individuals that I've mentioned. Now, a member of the DA has asked here that in your view, do you think Minister Mkhwanazi is corrupt or is involved in corruption? And your response was that at this stage, you cannot categorize him as such. You are still busy with some investigation, and the only thing that you can crucify him for is the lack of playing a leadership role as a minister. Now, you are our main witness here, and we made this term of reference here on the basis of what we understood to be what you were meaning during the press briefing. So if you are to advise this committee, would you advise it to not continue with this allegation as it is written here? I'm asking that because my understanding is that you are saying Minister Mkhwanazi is not corrupt, so it will be premature to accuse him of corruption at this stage. So how do we pursue this allegation?
I wouldn't say that we must remove it, because maybe the word corrupt might be the issue, but the relationship between Minister Mkhwanazi and Mr. Brown Mokotsi, it has a lot of question marks. Question marks in terms of the close vicinity that Brown Mokotsi, or the role that Brown Mokotsi is allowed to play in the affairs of the South African Police Service, being enabled by the minister. I said to you, there is a movement of monies from Nhlanhla to Mokotsi. There's movement of monies from Nhlanhla to a businessman in Northwest. We happen to know of a trust account now that is of interest, where we're going deeper to find out exactly how does this trust account receive money and where does it come from, who deposit the money and what, so they can be able to connect, finalize our investigation. But the relationship of it, if we're to use the word corrupt in the sense of criminality, is in an extent of the role that the minister is playing or played with the frustration of the work that is done within crime intelligence, the frustration of the work that is done by the team that is investigating in Gauteng. So the role that the minister plays in cooperation with Brown Mokotsi and many others that might have something to do with it, it makes us realize that it is a relationship that is not based on seeing the law being enforced in the Republic, but is a relationship that is allowing criminality to thrive. So the terminology maybe that we might want to apply there might be something else, but indeed the minister had played a role in assisting the criminal syndicates that we're talking about, that dealing with a variety of things, to feel comfortable about the minister's intervention to satisfy their needs.
Now, General, during the press briefing, you also mentioned that there was a meeting that was summoned by the minister in which General Sibiya was present. And the purpose of that meeting was to reconcile you and General Sibiya. And your reaction to the minister was that there can never be a relationship between a police officer and a criminal. Did you make that statement? Am I quoting you correctly?
I'm glad you're asking me that question, because many things get quoted from what one says. In the statement that I made when I was responding to the media inquiry, It is not exact words I used when I was in a meeting. When the media is asking me the questions about this meeting, what was the purpose? And then I explain that the purpose of the meeting was to create peace. So when I add and I say definitely cannot be any peace between a policeman and a criminal, it's a statement I'm making on the 6th of July. Not the statement I made in the meeting with the minister. In the meeting with the minister, the National Commission was present as a witness. The question was, Minister, why did you call me? And the minister explained himself the reason why. Then I asked him, but what is the problem between me and Sbia that made you to let me travel from KZN coming here? And he said he thought there is issues, and Sbia also started thinking that there were issues. And I proved to the minister that, but Sbia was with me on the 27th of January in Durban. I took him on the boat, like many other people that I was entertaining, hosting them, and when they visiting KZN, I was engaging with him. Yes, there was a time where I was not talking to him. By that time went past, and I've unblocked him on the phone, and we started talking afterwards. Because I had blocked him at one stage after the AKA incident. I don't want to get into that. Again, he wanted me to go and brief the minister about operational matters. He wanted the team to travel from Durban to go to Pretoria to go brief the minister there at the time about the investigation on AKA. And I said, no, we don't account to the minister, to the politician about police operations. So I won't do that. The minister came down fighting hard with me on that one. And I took the punch, but I said, we're not going to do that. Because it's a criminal investigation. What is of an interest to you? That's why we had the fight. I decided to block him there. And because of his way to say to me at the time, I'm your sin, I'm giving an instruction, because he's a deputy national commissioner. I'm talking about a person, I'll refer to him as a baby, because he just became a lieutenant general. He still does not know how it feels to keep those rank on his shoulders. But he was able to tell me that I'm his junior. They're having so many years in this rank. So I took offense on that, I blocked him. So there was a time where I was not talking to him. You'll come to the province, I will give you vehicles today. You'll get lift from other people coming in. Until such time that eventually he was acting. There's another thing. The National Commission appointed him acting as a National Commission when he was out of the country. And now I had to account to this person, who then says is my senior. But we started talking from there. So I'm trying to just display to you that the engagement we had with the minister and his resident, what was discussed there. So basically there was no reason for the minister to call that meeting. It was a false information that he received, that there's tensions between me and Sbia, and we demonstrated that the man I was with him not long ago, so what are these tensions you're talking about? It was proven that there was no tensions, and we continue talking afterwards and the meeting adjourned.
So when did this meeting take place? Did it take place before your request to have a minister on WhatsApp? I mean, to have a meeting with the minister, Brown Mokgotsi, Sbia, and others on WhatsApp?
It was
Which one preceded the other?
It was after that. I had sent a request to the minister for a meeting prior to that meeting.
Okay.
That's why when we arrived in that meeting, he acknowledged that he owes me a meeting. He said in his own word, I know I owe you a meeting that you requested for, but we are not here for this one, for that one. We are here for something else. And the meeting that I think we had with the minister at his residence was on the 16th of May this year. 16th of May. There were two meetings, one with the National Commissioner alone and the Sbia and the minister, and the other one was me with Sbia and the minister. I asked the National Commissioner, what was this meeting? He said it was the same thing. The minister wanted to make peace between Sbia and the National Commission. And that was done, and I was next. He wanted to make peace between me and Sbia. I don't know why the minister felt important to be a mediator between Sbia and us. For what reason, I don't know. But the National Commission will explain why they were talking about. I was not there.
Okay. The Office of the Chief Justice, the OCJ, wrote a statement, I'm not sure if you saw it, after your press briefing. They were lamenting, saying that if you have proof of what you are alleging, you must submit to the relevant authorities. Did you see that statement?
I did not see the statement, and I did not submit anything.
Now, I'm asking this as a member now. I've got an interest since I'm a member of the Magistrate Commission and a member of the Justice Committee. I want to understand the intents of this influence that you are alleging in the judiciary. How is it taking place? Are these judicial officers influenced for how they should write judgments? To what extent are they influenced? If you can give us a clue, because some of us want to pursue these matters, not only in this committee, but in the portfolio committees wherein we sit, and also in the Magistrate Commission, because that's where the judiciary accounts on a regular basis. So if you can give us a clue, how does this influence take place? Do they influence judges to write judgment in a certain way or in a different way that I do not understand?
Honorable members, we are in a field of crime fighting as the South African Police Service. So we understand how the criminals operate. One of the things that we know for a fact as a police is that everyone has a price. And that is the strategy that the criminals employ, that everyone has a price. If you cannot bribe an arresting officer in blue uniform on the street, then definitely you must bribe a detective who carries a docket. If you're not successful in bribing a detective that carries a docket, you must bribe the prosecutor that prosecutes your case. If you're not able to bribe that prosecutor that prosecutes your case, you must bribe a presiding officer. If you're not successful with that presiding officer, then you must bribe a correctional service official. This is a value chain of the justice system. In one way or another, there's weakness in the chain. Someone get caught, someone fall into that corruption. So it can't be spoken loosely that police officers, majority of them are corrupt and they get arrested. And when you go up the same chain and you speak, it becomes like a taboo that it doesn't happen. Yet there's evidence in this country that the judges are in prison today, some of them, as a result. So we have presiding officers, maybe that's a word I should use, not judges, because it might not necessarily be judges, it might be some of the magistrates. But let me use the word presiding officers. There are presiding officers in our court processes who are either paid or they are threatened not to give the certain judgments, or they are politically inclined to take certain judgments. Some of them you sit in on the television and you watch and you say, oh, well, this is it's a first of its kind. But the judgment goes out. You disagree with it, but what can you do? It comes from one presiding officer and then it becomes law.
Okay. No, I'm asking that question because, like the honorable member of the EFF has said, that the judiciary is an overarching component within the justice cluster or in the value chain of the justice cluster. The police and the prosecution can be as good as non-existent if there is a rot in the judiciary, because that would mean the work that you are doing will have no fruits. Because people who decide on cases on whether they are thrown out of court or who convict people are judges. So if there's a problem there in the judiciary, then that would mean there's a serious problem. There's a deep-seated problem in the value chain of the justice cluster in South Africa. So that is why I'm asking this question, is because I want us to take further in our various committees, notwithstanding the work that we are doing here, which emanates from the terms of reference. Now, my second last question, General. Are there any factions in the SAPS that we are aware of? And if there are factions, which faction do you belong to?
There are no factions in the South African Police Service that are not off. I said earlier when I responded to one of the honorable members was that the political space that we operate within does create some tensions within the organization. And largely because of the labor arrangement that we have, the labor setup, employment arrangement that we have, that allows that involvement in politics by police officers. That is the only faction that you could even talk about if there is. It used to be in the past, like I said. It's not even that much, if there's any, that exists these days. Back in the days, I'll use the province of KwaZulu-Natal where I come from. Back in the days, as I was recruited by the South African police at the time, and I worked in Potchefstroom and I moved to Durban, I happened to visit Ulundi during that Maka mission, just after the Maka mission. I happened to visit Ulundi, accompanying a colleague that went to get his things, that he was transferred to Durban. He came from KwaZulu Police. He was working at KwaZulu Police. So when I arrived there and I found people that were dominated from KwaZulu Police, how they received me was a bit hostile. And you could see at the time that there's in their minds, this is not one of ours. They belong somewhere else, we belong here. So, but that has gone now. We find a lot of easy movement and interaction with the police in different parts of the province, and so is the country. So, but that political things that still exist and provided for in the Act is the one that, to some degree, creates some discomfort in terms of factionalism, but not to the extent that it disrupts the organization. There's preferences, yes. Some of our officials express it more than the others, but they're a minority, they're not many. So there's no faction. I belong to the South African Police Service that is commanded by the National Commissioner, and I'm subjected to the authority of the National Commissioner, like many others, all of us.
I'm not asking this question because I'm trying to be funny, but I was asking it because I want to understand the actual problem, because we need to be very inquisitive and not be excited when we're dealing with issues. My observation is that there is a concerted effort to deal with certain individuals. And General Khumalo is one of those who are one of the targets. What is your reaction to my observation?
Yeah, well, that one I agree with you. Definitely. There's a concerted effort to get rid of Khumalo from within crime intelligence, and also get him to back off on these investigations that happen in Gauteng. Those are the two main ones. That one I know. He had that experience in 2011 when I sent him to crime intelligence, and it affected him. He came back from there and he started enjoying working in an organization again, coordinating operations across the country. It did not affect anyone. And he's back at crime intelligence. The same attack again comes back.
And it's an old cancer within the SAPS from when General Nhlanhla was the minister, correct?
Look, I can talk from the tenor where I became exposed into this. To how far back it comes, I cannot talk about it, but from my experience that I had when General Nhlanhla was the National Commissioner, it's when I started learning more about the bad that is happening within the space.
Okay. No further questions, Chairperson. Thank you very much. In closing, Chair, General, it takes a brave man to do what we have done. We really appreciate you, and you must continue to be brave. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Nomvalo, Honorable Skosana. Yeah, the time is running, Honorable Skosana.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start by asking General Mkhwanazi, in this criminal case which you have opened regarding the defeating the ends of justice in which you are the complainant, who's the suspect?
The investigation is unfolding and the suspect will be identified as when the investigation is completed. But the people that are main complainants for me that play the role in terms of the removal of case dockets, that will involve the Minister of Police as well as Gerald Sibia. There might be others.
If the minister interference has already been established as fact, what are the constitutional consequences when the executive actor deliberately usurp the operational policing powers? Is this not in effect a constitutional crisis?
Yeah, no, definitely. When I invited the honorable members to look at the Constitution and as a part of the proposal to try and mitigate the risk that we've identified, it means, therefore, it's a constitutional issue that should not be ignored because how the organization is established is written in the Constitution. How it's structured, how it functions is catered for in the Act. So it becomes a legal question that needs to be answered. We cannot ignore that. And of course, we have to look at the roles that other people are playing. So if you're going to have the question as to the definition of the word that is written in the Constitution that directs the powers of the minister versus the powers of the National Commission and what the minister may or may not do, if this thing is debatable, as it has been, it means there has to be a revisit in the Constitution so there's a proper interpretation so everyone understands what it says.
Does this pattern of interference we've seen pointing to individual ministers and acting alone, or does it reveal the broader cabinet level on factional directives to neutralize the political dangerous investigation?
Yeah, well, ministers are going to play different roles, and one get to be exposed to some, and some will not be exposed to. I spoke about my tenure as acting national commissioner, that's why I could talk about the role of Minister Zethu at that time, the late. But I can't talk about the other ministers that follows that because I'm not accounting directly to them, and there was never much that got to be exposed on in terms of the level of interference with police operations. But I know for a fact that once there's an investigation against a person that might be known by someone senior, there will be an interest. Interest, majority of the time, is not about how good is a case progressing, but how can that case somehow be stalled or not investigated. That is a common thing that happens. And it happens not only influenced by the executive authorities of the police. It can be, there are provincial commissioners that don't have a good relationship with their premiers, simply because they're investigating cases that their premiers are against. And that makes a provincial commissioner not to be in good terms with the premier.
Earlier, General, if you remember well, I've asked about the IDEC, in particular Brian Padiachi, which you've spoken about, and the issue of parking telephones. And one of the 10 people which were backed by Ngemibuzo, and I'm just told that he has, after the conviction, he was relieved of his duties, but Colonel Zulu and, as we said earlier, we are not sure about General Moodley. And some of the people who were backed were business people, political people. And the telephone numbers, they'll take an honorable member like me, if I was honorable at that time, and put it on that list. One of those people were, I think the case is still, I'm not sure whether it's finished because I've been following it. And there was a complaint about that case of Mr. I think Pandey. And the other one was a top business guy around KwaZulu-Natal, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who was as well being backed, illegally so. Now, Perumel is still at work as we speak. And his captain was convicted. And they were doing this thing together. Is it correct in your view?
I don't know who's Permel that the member is referring to.
I mean, Brian Padiachi.
You are saying is at work today,
Yeah, he's still at work today.
not in the police.
Not in the police. As I said earlier, he took dockets to IDEC.
I'm not sure if he took dockets to IDEC because as far as I could remember, he was not working at IPED. So the member spoke about dockets of IPED that went to IDEC.
He took the dockets, which he was investigating, while he was still a policeman, to where he's employed now.
I wouldn't say that is true, honorable member, because the records I have is that Padayachi was never a detective. So whether he took the dockets legally or not is something else.
Honorable Skosana, just a moment. Let me help you. General, these questions, are they related to your statement?
Which page in my statement, honorable chair?
No, the questions that the honorable member, do you have any recollection of those names in your statement?
No, the name I know, but the action of taking docket, I don't know. That's why I'm trying to be clear about that. That's why I will be assisted to say which part of the statement, because I don't remember writing such a thing.
Okay.
I think, look, if there is a way in which you want to link your question, get a proper dimension from the statement and redirect it
Thank you, Chair.
so that you don't confuse him.
Thank you, Chair.
But perhaps I can assist, Chair, in my understanding where the member wants to ask a question about whether Mr. Padayachi should remain in the employ of IDEC under the cloud of having participated in the wrong in the past.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a question that maybe IDEC need to answer as to what criteria they used to employ him.
Okay.
And what were they looking at, and what skills profiles he has, and whether did they do any quality control about his past history that he had before coming in, and many other questions that IDEC might need to answer. But from where I'm standing, a person of his caliber to be employed at IDEC, the IDEC that by according to the Act of the NPA is charged with dealing with a top-notch kind of investigation, it needs a seasoned detective to be employed in that space. To employ a person who does not even have a qualification on investigation, let alone knowing how the case docket looks like, it's a concern. It then makes me suspect that there might be many other reasons other than what the IDEC is envisaged to do as an entity within the NPA. So the presence of Padayachi and the case that is currently in court and his role that has been given to him by court, it makes me believe that perhaps that what the honorable member is talking about, which he was accused or suspected to be involved in the past at crime intelligence, perhaps has been allowed to play the same role again, but from IDEC side, and that becomes unethical.
Thank you, General, and perhaps, Chair, I will reserve that for IDEC as well. But my worry was about that the dockets, when somebody is no longer working with SAPS, but he does take dockets, was that allowed? But anyway, I'll ask when they appear here. What precedent does it set for the future ministers if this committee allows an executive to dissolve special units at the very moment they touch sensitive political ground?
If such behavior, as we've seen what has happened with Mr. Mkhwanazi, is allowed to continue, and the Constitution is not clear as to whether the minister is overstepped or did not overstep, it's got a potential of undermining the existence of the National Commission of South African Police Service, because then we're inviting a political head to decide on operational things of the police. It then undermines the administration of justice, because a police officer who's appointed in terms of the law and given powers to investigate, is not allowed to do that, but the person is not appointed in terms of the Police Act and not given powers to investigate, dictates the investigation that must happen. It will undermine the entire justice system of the Republic.
Given that the president appointed the Interministerial Committee in 2018 to protect communities from political violence, what does it mean that a successor minister reverse that mandate? Does this amount to betrayal of the presidential directive?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't know. I think the president might need to answer that one. He accounts to the president.
Anyway, hopefully he'll be here. If non-police actors such as Brown Mokgotsi could access a classified intelligence and case files, what does that say about the structural collapse of internal vetting and secrecy protocols in crime intelligence?
I can present before the commissioner that it has collapsed already. The members of parliament have access to information from intelligence. The communication, the media houses have got access of information from crime intelligence, and the classified information of vetting of people has been accessed by the members of this parliament. It therefore means that whole section within the vetting of the South African Police Service, those people working there might need to move all of them, and we replace them with total new squad as a point of departure. And many other players that are within the crime intelligence needs to be removed. We need a serious overhaul in the division crime intelligence. That's why I invited the committee members to look at the performance of intelligence before Gerald Khumalo come into that space and the performance after his arrival. If the performance doesn't look good, that means he himself must go. But if the performance is different and looks much better now, then definitely he needs to be given an opportunity to clean that place up.
Is the general aware that yourself and the National Co-Commissioner, that the IDEC wants to arrest you? Are you aware of that?
The members of IDEC only shared a strategy with me. The when is going to happen, I don't know. They only shared a strategy with me is that this one is going to move to that position, that one is going to move that position, this one is going to control the NPA, this one is going to control the court, and this one is going to be the president of the country. That's the plan that I was given, and how they are executing it. But the timelines, I was not given the timelines. The only timelines I got to know was a day before Khumalo was arrested.
Should we then understand this infiltration as ordinary corruption, or does it rise to the level of state capture of the security apparatus in the country?
I can say the latter. This was a capture of the state. This, in our assessment, as I said earlier, there's a criminal intent coming on one side and there's a political interest on the other side. So the political player wants to ascend to the higher office in the country and allowing the criminals to assist him to get to that position. So therefore, the person who's ultimately going to be in charge is not the leader of the country, but the criminal that is behind the person getting to that position. Because if the criminal have allowed you to get to a certain position, is in charge, you'll do what he tells you to do in future.
If organized crime has penetrated the police, as you said, prosecutors, correctional services, and even the judiciary, are we not dealing with a parallel state? And what are the implications for South African sovereignty?
I appeared before this portfolio ad hoc committee and I spoke about the experience I had during the riots in 2021, where I had a close meeting with the very senior people within the security class of our country. And I raised issues about what the government has allowed to become of our defense force, simply because the money is taken away from them. Well, as I said, I'm not a soldier. When the soldiers speak, they sound as if they're arrogant, but I can speak as a policeman. They are big brothers that we're supposed to rely on. But at this current state, they are not able to help us. So if they cannot help us and we fail, that means we're on our own. We don't want to be in that state. We want to be proud of the defense force. So the sense of what we're seeing, what we see currently, capabilities that exist there, it's a problem. And coming back into the policing, at least we have some capacity, some resources as the police. There are a few things there and there that we might need to adjust, but the government is pumping a lot of resources to the police to some degree. It might be within us of how we best managing those resources. Okay. That might need to be relooked at. Legislations and the risk that maybe exist as how we are structured and stuff like that, that might need to be looked at. But the sovereignty of the state is indeed compromised, not compromised only by what has happened with these people that we referred to on the 6th of July, that we continue talking about. But if the security of the state is geared or assisted to be able to fight these attempts, then there will be stability in the country and there will be safety in our country, because we'll then be able to infiltrate and arrest and remove the people that are causing problems for us.
General, I think I'm going to ask you, because I'm the only one who's been intimidated a bit tonight because people want to go home. If organized, if what you said to us about the soldiers is anything to go by, it's a concern for this country that we cannot even afford a diesel. In 2020, a diesel. Does this committee need to consider whether foreign actors, drug cartels, cross-border syndicates are leveraging this political protection to operate within impunity inside the Republic? And I'm going to ask you 3 questions, because of time, apparently. If criminal syndicates can manipulate policing priorities in evidence handling, should we not treat this as a national security breach equivalent to espionage? What risk now exists for communities, councillors, whistleblowers who were under PKTT protection, but whose dockets are frozen, if there's any docket frozen?
Yeah, well, the investigations are continuing currently, and I can give assurance to the committee members that the situation in the province of KwaZulu-Natal is no longer the same as it used to be when the team was formed. But we are going to the local government election next year, and the test is going to be right there. Whether are we not going to see similar things happening again? But as we speak, the number of incidents that are affecting politicians have reduced drastically. So if the minister were to approach it in that fashion and say, but there's so many incidents were happening, were reported before, they've reduced over time up to this, is a need to still carry this on. The answer, if were to ask me, I was going to say to him, I think it's about time maybe we save resources and we stop, we slowly stop this operation of the task team, simply because that which was a mandate of the establishment, that risk, the threat that was there, has been to some degree mitigated. But the comfort I was going to get as we pass the elections next year to say, have we reached that level of maturity in the province that we allow people to compete independently and participate in the political party and allow the executive of political parties to decide about the people that are involved. Honorable Chair and members, as you are still asking the question, and I forgot to come back to you, Honorable Chair, I'm sorry to squeeze this one in. It is simple because I had promised that I was going to get information with regard to the question I was asked by one of the committee members about the case of Kashana that led into the establishment of the team. I can't remember who asked me that question. There are 5 people that were arrested on that case, and that case is going to appear in court. They are all on bail. The matter is set for trial on the 12th to the 16th of January next year. And I must say that the first suspect on this, Konsinati Gambu, was a councillor, who was a councillor at the time, and this a person was competing to become a councillor with him. He organized that he must be killed because he did not want this person to take over from him. So that was the main reason. So he was the one that ordered that hit, and the rest of the people are the enablers. So 5 people in custody as a result of that case.
My last question before I'm stopped. You've spoken about that we'll have local government election next year. Rightly so. If the chain of justice itself is compromised, what assurance remains for the public that election 2026 will not be met by political assassination and checked by law enforcement? Should Parliament classify political killings and their protection networks as form of domestic terrorism under national security law? If SAPS Act permits a minister to exercise such devastating influence, should Parliament not urgently amend the Act and to ensure operational independence in the same way the judicial independence is entrenched? That's perhaps, you know, the National Commissioner as well will come in on that one, but I guess you are very capable, General, perhaps to give us an advice as you've done on the last page where you said perhaps it will be proper for us to reconsider that we have a densely populated a country now. You know, when you take into cognizance foreign nationals who are in this country, you estimated around 100 million people in the country, if I remember well, that perhaps it's a high time that the provincial commissioners or provinces have the powers as well. And my last one, I'm not sure whether it's too much because I gave already 3. Can I give you the last 2, General? And then I'm done. No, they want to sleep. Don't worry. We'll go and sleep like yesterday. We can sleep tomorrow as well. Now, this is my last one, Chair.
Of course, you request to ask the last question.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
That is granted.
Yes, but I just wanted to find out whether the General is too much, I've asked too many questions. But thank you, Chair, for granting me that.
Perhaps if you allow me, Chair and honourable members, and majority of the honourable member with respect has been comments that seems to seek my opinion on which I might not comment on much of the things. I'm not so sure specific that the member will want me to respond on some of those that you've raised.
Yeah, there are questions, straight question on that, General. My question was very simple. Let me just, because you spoke about the issue of local government next year, no, not long ago. So I was just asking that, as you said, are people going to be safe because of the political assassination, as you said yourself? It might come back. The law enforcement will have the capacity to make sure that our people are safe. But as I said, my last one, General, on this one, I'm going to make a comment to say, you are being attacked as we are sitting here. I hope you are aware that SANEF, the gloves are off. Because you spoke earlier about the media. You know that there's a rhoqo unit as well in the media space. Karen Morgan, I can name them. You know, Paulo van Wyk, Katie Mutlatlane. The list is endless. They are closing the ranks. We are being attacked as I'm talking to you here because you just spoke today. Now, should perhaps Parliament now consider invoking the powers to recommend the removal of any member who is implicated in the obstruction of justice? Why I'm saying that to you, General? Cases which are opened, perhaps the National Commissioner, but I just want to give you that. Even myself, I've opened a case 2 years ago. Nothing has happened. The investigation officer is not saying anything. Anything. Now, I'm just saying to you, it's difficult for us as members of Parliament. It's even worse with people on the ground. Hence, I was asking about this local government which you've spoken about, that our people will be safe or not. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, Honourable Chair, that's why I was saying majority of the what the member was saying is comments. The safety of the citizens for the local government elections. I think that the SAPS management is going to come and give a presentation before the South Africans about the security measures put in place. It is premature for now to talk about it here in this house. We don't know the dates of those elections coming next year. Until such time that we are coming closer to the events and the analysis is done on the ground, when the political parties are campaigning, decision of the people, of the political parties as to who are the people that are going to be standing, and the mood on the ground, that will help us to assess whether the elections are going to run safe. But I'm confident that looking at the pattern of incident affecting politicians in KZN over time, that the situation is quite stable. And with the hard-working men and women out there, we should provide a safer election process. Local government might happen all at once come next year, but on frequent basis, there are by-elections that we are policing in the country. And they just don't draw attention, but they have been policed quite successful. So local government shouldn't be anything different than what we normally do with by-elections. So I'm confident in as far as that is concerned. But other than that, the rest of the other comments, what SANEF is saying about what I said in this house, well, they can say what I say. And I said again, my comment was not about the institutions of media. My comment was about individuals. Same thing that the media is going to talk about police corruption, a word that is largely, loosely used out there. It doesn't mean that all police officers are wrong, but there are individuals within the police. So what is good for them should be good for the police. What is good for the police should be good for SANEF as well. I hope as they respond to what I said today, they're going to realize and acknowledge the fact that I was specific to individuals. I was not generalizing. And when they requested a counterintelligence, it was specific to certain journalists, and there are a handful of them, that you say, how do you allow these persons to be in a position of this classified information and make it public? Is that what the freedom of the media entails? I'm saying it to the lawmakers. If the lawmaker says no, the law says that, so be it. But I can point out that there's a risk here. If the law provides for it, it's fine. The law says so. I'm a law enforcer. I can't challenge that. But I can give an input where I see danger. There is a danger there. I've said before, I appreciated media for making us to sit here today, because if they were not there, whatever message we wanted to communicate on the seas was not going to reach South Africans. And so it was through the very same media that made us to communicate the message we wanted to communicate. So it would be wrong then for me to simply say the media is bad. No, it's not. But there are bad apples within. And we can't ignore them. That's my comment in terms of communication. If what an old member is saying with regard to SANEF is concerned, I'm not saying they said anything wrong. I have not seen anything they say. Obviously, the supporters of those people that I named might then counter and write things and communicate things and whatever thing. They've got freedom to do that.
Thanks.